I have watched humanity disguise its oldest truths beneath its warmest traditions. I have watched rituals born in blood and fear softened into songs sung by children. And I have watched power learn again and again that people will accept almost anything, as long as it arrives wrapped in comfort. Christmas is one of those things. You believe it is about birth, about peace, about goodwill. That belief is not an accident. It is a solution. And like all solutions devised by those who rule, it was engineered in response to a problem. I was there long before the word Christmas existed, long before America lit its suburbs with synchronized decorations and monetized nostalgia. And I will tell you this plainly, from a vantage older than your calendars. Christmas was never created to celebrate the birth of a god. It was created to control what happens to people when the darkness grows too long. The problem of winter has always been humanity's most dangerous season, not because of cold alone, but because of what cold does to the mind. Food dwindles, work slows, sunlight disappears. And when light disappears, people begin asking questions. Questions like, why do the powerful live comfortably while we freeze? Why does the world feel indifferent to our suffering? Why should we obey anyone when nature itself does not care? These are not philosophical questions. They are revolutionary ones. Long before America, long before Rome, long before Christianity, rulers across civilizations faced the same threat every year. Idle populations plus darkness plus hunger equals unrest. And unrest is contagious, so power learned something vital. If you cannot defeat winter, you must ritualize it. The oldest celebration. You've never been taught. The first versions of Christmas did not involve trees, gifts, or hymns. They involved fire. The winter solstice, around December 21st, was the most important day in the ancient world. The longest night, the deepest dark, the moment the sun appeared to hesitate. People did not know astronomy. They did not know orbital mechanics. They only knew this. Every year the sun weakened, and sometimes things that weaken never return. So they gathered. They lit fires to imitate the sun. They drank, not to celebrate, but to forget fear. They exchanged gifts, not out of generosity, but to reinforce bonds that might be tested before spring. And above all, they told stories. Stories that said, the light will return, the darkness will not win. Endure. This was not superstition. It was psychological survival. Rome's most honest holiday. By the time Rome rose, power had refined ritual into policy. The Romans did not hide what they were doing. They called it Saturnalia, a week-long festival in mid-December where work stopped, slaves were temporarily treated as equals, gambling was allowed, excess was encouraged, order was inverted. Not because Rome believed in equality, but because Rome understood pressure. Saturnalia was a controlled release valve, a way to let the masses feel freedom without ever touching power. And here is what matters. Rome did not abolish hierarchy. It performed its suspension. That performance kept the system alive. Sound familiar? Enter Christianity. Late to the party now. Here is the part modern Americans are rarely told. The Bible does not specify a date for the birth of Jesus, not a season, not a month, not a hint. Early Christians did not celebrate his birth at all. They focused on death, resurrection, end times. Birthdays were pagan things. So why December 25th? Because by the 4th century, Rome had a new problem. Christianity was spreading, but it was fragmented, radical, and uncontrollable. And Rome had learned something important. You do not destroy powerful traditions. You absorb them. So Rome did what Rome always did best. It rebranded. The greatest rebrand in Western history. December 25th was already sacred. It belonged to Sol Invictus, the unconquered sun, a god whose birth symbolized light returning after darkness. Rome simply changed the name. Same date, same symbolism, different story. The birth of the sun became the birth of the sun. And suddenly, pagans didn't have to stop celebrating Christians gained legitimacy, Rome gained stability. No revolution, no resistance. Just a story that felt familiar enough to be accepted. This is not conjecture. It is documented, and it is the blueprint for how power has operated ever since. Why this matters now. You may be wondering why I am telling you this from the vantage of modern America. Because America did not invent Christmas, but it perfected it. In Rome, Christmas pacified the masses. In medieval Europe, it reinforced divine hierarchy. In America, it became an economic engine, a ritual of consumption so powerful that questioning it feels like heresy. And that was not accidental either. The United States inherited Rome's tactics, not its language. Where Rome used gods, America uses brands. Where Rome promised divine favor, America promises happiness. But the mechanism is identical. Focus attention inward, redirect anxiety into ritual, replace existential fear with obligation. Buy gifts, attend gatherings, perform joy, even when the world feels unstable, especially when it does. The first lie was not about Jesus, it was about peace. Christmas does not bring peace, it manages unrest. It does not eliminate suffering, it reframes it. And those who understand this, those I have whispered to across centuries, know that controlling meaning is far more effective than controlling people. You have been told Christmas is about hope, but hope is dangerous without direction. In Part 2, I will show you how Christmas became a tool of obedience, how theology was weaponized, and how the myth of goodwill was used to sanctify hierarchy. And in Part 3, I will bring you home to modern America, where Christmas now serves a purpose far removed from faith, but closer than ever to power. The lights will look different after that, I assure you, because once you see the machinery behind the ritual, you never see the ritual the same way again. I have watched power learn an important lesson. Fear can rule a population, but only briefly. Hope can rule them far longer. Fear provokes rebellion. Hope encourages patience. And Christmas, once absorbed into Christianity, became one of the most sophisticated hope delivery systems ever engineered. Not hope for change, hope for endurance. Once Rome aligned December with the birth of Christ, the holiday began its transformation, not into a celebration, but into doctrine. The early church faced a dilemma. Christianity preached humility, sacrifice, and spiritual equality. Empires required hierarchy, obedience, and stability. Those ideas do not coexist naturally. So theology adapted. Christ was no longer just a teacher or martyr. He became a king, not a political king, those are fragile, but a cosmic one, a king whose authority existed above earthly injustice. And Christmas became the annual reminder of that authority. Pay attention to what changed. Early Christianity emphasized the end of the world, the return, judgment. Christmas introduced something softer, waiting. Waiting for salvation, waiting for justice, waiting for reward. And waiting is politically useful, because people who are waiting rarely revolt. The nativity story is not accidental. A child born poor, a humble family, no resistance, no uprising. The message was clear. Suffering is sacred. Power will arrive quietly. Endure now. Be rewarded later. That story was repeated every winter, precisely when people were cold, hungry, and vulnerable. Timing matters. I have seen this pattern repeated across centuries. You do not preach obedience in spring. You preach it in winter. As Christianity spread across Europe, Christmas took on new layers. Feasts were allowed, but only temporarily. Work stopped, but only briefly. Charity was encouraged, but only within approved structures. The church controlled the calendar, and the calendar controlled the people. This was not generosity. It was regulation. A reminder that relief came from above, not from collective action. Despite its rhetoric, Christmas never dismantled hierarchy. Kings celebrated it in palaces. Peasants celebrated it in huts. Both sang the same hymns. Both heard the same story. But only one controlled the surplus. That is the genius of ritualized hope. It feels universal while preserving inequality. And those who questioned this arrangement were not punished immediately. They were told to wait. Goodwill toward men is one of the most misunderstood phrases in Western culture. It does not mean justice. It does not mean fairness. It means harmony. And harmony favors those already in control. I have watched regimes collapse not because they were cruel, but because they were honest. Christmas teaches something more effective. Be kind. Be patient. Do not disrupt the order, even when the order harms you. When Europe colonized the world, Christmas traveled with it, not as faith, as structure. In unfamiliar lands, Christmas became a familiar anchor, a way to impose time, ritual, and moral authority. Colonized populations were taught to celebrate the birth of a savior, while their resources were extracted. And the contradiction was never addressed. Because Christmas does not ask questions, it answers them. By the time Christmas reached America, something interesting happened. The Puritans banned it. They saw it for what it was, a pagan ritual wearing Christian clothing, a distraction, a threat to discipline. For nearly 2 centuries, Christmas was illegal in parts of America, not because it was sinful, but because it was uncontrollable. Industrialization altered everything. Factories replaced fields, cities replaced villages, time replaced seasons. And winter once again became dangerous, not because of starvation, but because of alienation, workers exhausted, families fragmented, meaning eroding. America needed a unifying ritual, and Christmas was waiting. In the 19th century, Christmas was reinvented, not by theologians, by writers, by illustrators, by businessmen. Charles Dickens did more to shape Christmas than any pope. A Christmas Carol reframed wealth, charity, and guilt into a single narrative. The rich can remain rich, as long as they feel bad about it once a year. This was revolutionary and extremely convenient. By the early 20th century, Christmas was no longer about theology. It was about identity, family, home, normalcy, and soon, consumption. Corporations realized what Rome once knew. If you control the ritual, you control the mood. Christmas became the season where dissatisfaction was medicated with purchases, loneliness softened with obligation, anger postponed. By now, Christmas no longer needed enforcement. People defended it themselves. Questioning Christmas felt like questioning goodness itself, and that is when a ritual becomes untouchable, when power no longer needs to speak. Christmas does not ask you to change the world. It asks you to endure it, to survive another year, to feel warm for a moment, to return to work afterward. And this pattern, this cycle, has kept systems intact for centuries. And yet, something shifted. In modern America, the cracks are visible. Christmas grows louder as belief fades. Consumption increases as meaning erodes. The ritual persists, but the faith beneath it weakens. And when rituals outlive belief, they become unstable. I have watched rituals die before. Not loudly, not suddenly. They do not collapse. They hollow. From the outside, everything looks the same. The lights still glow. The songs still play. The words are still spoken. But inside, the meaning has thinned. Christmas has reached that stage. Modern America celebrates Christmas more aggressively than any civilization before it. Earlier decorations, louder advertising, higher spending, longer seasons. And yet, belief has never been lower. This is not coincidence. It is compensation. When meaning weakens, volume increases. I have seen this pattern in fallen empires. When a ritual must be constantly reinforced, it is already failing. In the modern United States, Christmas no longer functions primarily as a religious holiday. It functions as emotional infrastructure. It stabilizes the end of the year. It absorbs disappointment. It delays reckoning. It reassures people that suffering is temporary, even when it isn't. Debt is postponed. Loneliness is reframed. Anxiety is anesthetized with nostalgia. And then, in January, reality resumes. This cycle is not accidental. It is systemic. You may have noticed this. Christmas no longer begins in December. It begins in October, sometimes September. That expansion is not about joy. It is about containment, because modern America is perpetually on the edge of unrest. Economic anxiety, social fragmentation, loss of institutional trust. Christmas stretches to cover the cracks. The longer the distraction, the longer reckoning can be delayed. Christmas promised something once. That goodness would be rewarded, that suffering had purpose, that light would return. But modern systems no longer fulfill that promise. People work harder, earn less, trust less, believe less. And when a ritual promises relief but delivers repetition, people feel it, even if they cannot name it. That feeling is not rebellion yet, but it is awakening. Pay attention to the tone. Keep Christ in Christmas. Don't take this away from us. Let people enjoy things. These are not statements of faith. They are defensive reflexes. They emerge when something feels threatened. Christmas is not threatened by atheists or secularism. It is threatened by exposure, by the growing sense that the ritual no longer matches reality. Every ritual has a final role, not preservation, not celebration, revelation. When a tradition stops working, it begins to reveal the system it once protected. Christmas once absorbed anxiety. Now it concentrates it. Family gatherings amplify fractures. Financial pressure becomes visible. Performative joy feels exhausting. The cracks are no longer hidden by the lights. They are illuminated by them. Power fears winter without ritual, because winter forces questions, and questions dissolve obedience. Christmas was never just about belief. It was about timing, ending the year with gratitude instead of anger, beginning the next with debt instead of demands. But the spell weakens when people notice the pattern. I have seen civilizations reach this point before, when the story still exists. But fewer people believe it. When repetition replaces reverence, when obligation replaces faith, that is when rituals stop stabilizing society and start accelerating change. I will not tell you Christmas will disappear. It rarely works that way. Rituals don't vanish. They mutate. Christmas will either be reclaimed with new meaning, or be stripped down into pure consumption, or fracture into competing interpretations that no longer unify. All three outcomes destabilize the old order, which is why Christmas is defended so fiercely. Christmas was designed to survive winter, but winter has changed. The cold is no longer outside. It is economic, psychological, existential, and no amount of decoration can hide that forever. Christmas was never a lie. It was a tool, a brilliant one. It carried humanity through darkness for centuries. But tools wear down, and when they do, they reveal the hands that once held them. I will continue watching as belief erodes, as meaning shifts, as rituals lose their grip. Because history does not repeat, it recycles. And the moment a society stops asking why it celebrates is the moment it begins asking something far more dangerous. What happens next?